cellulose digestion in ruminant animals. So like starch, cellulose is also made up of glucose residues, but here glucose molecules, they are linked together through beta-1,4 glycosidic bond. The conversion of cellulose to glucose and then into pyruvate is a more complex process, and that is still less well understood. As cellulose is made up of beta-1,4 glucose molecule, so it is decomposed by cellulase enzyme, or the enzyme which degrade beta-1,4 glucosides or beta-1,4 glycosidic bond. So it is beta-1,4 glucosidases. So they convert cellulose into cellubiose, which is then converted into glucose. Or if glucose get phosphorylated through phosphorylase, it is converted into glucose 1-phosphatase. Cellulose is present in two different forms. The one is amorphous form and the second one is crystalline form. Amorphous form can be easily degraded or fermented by the microorganisms, but the crystalline form is the most difficult to degrade in the human. So this is what happened. Cellulose is converted into cellubiose and then into glucose 1-phosphate and glucose 6-phosphate. Then it follows the same glycolytic pathway or Embden-Meyerhof pathway and finally converted into pyruvic acid. So this pyruvic acid is then utilized through TCA cycle for the production of energy. The extracellular cellulases produced by ruminococci species like Ruminococcus albus and Ruminococcus faciens. So out of these, the Ruminococcus albus degrade mainly the amorphous cellulose, while the cellulases produced by Ruminococcus faciens, they can hydrolyze crystalline cellulose. So these bacteria also produce a non-hydrolytic protein. This non-hydrolytic protein is supposed to be required for binding of the cellulose to cellulase. So you can say that this protein actually enhances the action of the cellulase. However, the mechanism by which this occurs, that is not completely understood. Then comes the bacterioid succinogens. So these bacterioid succinogens, they have a higher cellulase activity than that of the ruminococci, and they are the most abundant in number when there is a crystalline cellulose present in the rumen. The cellulase of bacterioid succinogen is apparently bound to the outer membrane, and the bacterium must come in physical contact with the cellulose to hydrolyze it. Again, like starch, the quantitative importance of protozoa in ruminal cellulose degradation is unclear. The reason is similar to that of starch because these protozoa, they actually engulf the bacteria. That's why the actual amount of cellulose degraded by protozoa in the presence of cellulolytic bacteria remains unclear. Hemicellulose. Hemicellulose appears to be degraded by the same bacterial species which hydrolyze cellulose. So you can say the fibrolytic bacteria which are responsible for the degradation of cellulose, they are also able to hydrolyze hemicellulose. But that is through a non-specific hydrolysis of beta-1,4 xylosidic linkages. The hydrolysis of hemicellulose, it gives xylose and uronic acid, whereas the uronic acid is then converted into xylose. There are the two enzymes which are responsible for the hydrolysis of pectin. The one is methyl esterase and the other one is polyglucuronidase. So they hydrolyze pectin into glucuronic acid or the methyl ester of glucuronic acid and other sugars. So as a result of this hydrolysis, the pentoses which are produced from this hemicellulose and pectin degradation, they are transformed before being converted to volatile fatty acids. So in essence, 3 pentose phosphate, they are converted into 2 hexose phosphate and a triphosphate via the reactions of transketolase and transaldolase prior to entering the Embden-Merhoek pathway. So 3 pentose mean 15 carbon atom. So there is a formation of 2 hexose, 12 carbon, and then a 3 carbon triphosphate, and then they enter into the glycolytic or Embden-Merhoek pathway. So this is the summary of this conversion of carbohydrate to pyruvate. Here you can see the pectins, they are converted into uronic acid, and this uronic acid is then converted into pentose sugars. So these pentose sugars are then enter into Embden-Merhoek pathway, either they are converted into fructose 6-phosphate or fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Hemicellulose, it yields uronic acid and pentose sugar. Again, that uronic acid is converted into pentose. And the pentose sugars or pentosanes, they are converted into pentoses. So all these pentoses are then converted into fructose 6-phosphate or fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. And finally, they are converted into this pyruvate. So it's a complete what we have discussed up till now, conversion of carbohydrate to pyruvate in the rumen. So the simple sugars which are produced in the first step of carbohydrate digestion in the rumen, they are rarely detectable in the rumen leaker. It means if we would like to detect this glucose or maltose or sucrose, it's very difficult. The reason being, these simple sugars, they are immediately taken up and metabolized intracellularly by the microorganisms. So that's why we cannot detect them in the rumen fluid. For the second stage here mean when these carbohydrates, these simple sugars, they are taken up by the microorganisms. So they are metabolized in the same way or in many respects, they are similar to those of the metabolism of carbohydrate in the animal. It means that these carbohydrates, they follow the same type of metabolic pathway like Embden-Merhoek pathway, PCA cycle. But the only difference is in case of ruminant animals, this utilization is in the microorganisms for their own body synthesis. So the pyruvate which is produced as a result of this carbohydrate metabolism, this is an intermediate through which all carbohydrate must pass before being converted to volatile fatty acids, carbon dioxide, and methane. The proportion of end product, it depends on three factors. Here, the end product means volatile fatty acids, carbon dioxide, and methane. So it depends upon three factors. The one is type of carbohydrates which are fermented in the rumen. The second factor is the type of bacterial species involved. And the third one is ruminal environment itself. We have discussed these factors in the previous lecture, and we will also discuss in the coming slides how different types of carbohydrates they affect the proportion of this BFAs, then how bacterial species which are involved in the fermentation process, they affect the yield of different products, and ultimately all that also linked with the ruminal environment. So this data is taken from a lecture available on the net. I'm not aware about the proper reference, but to present this data is just to show about the rate of degradation of different type of carbohydrate fractions in the rumen. If you look at the composition over here, when there are sugars or there are organic acids, then the ruminal digestion rate is very high. The sugars, they are fermented at a rate of 200 to 350% per hour in the rumen. But when we look at the organic acids, so their rate of fermentation is quite low, that is only 1 to 2% per hour. Then comes the starch. starch rate of fermentation, it took more time. It means only 10 to 40% are being degraded in the rumen, whereas the soluble available fiber, they rather take more time, only 40 to 60% these soluble available fiber like pectin and beta glucans, they are fermented. When we look at insoluble available fibers like cellulose, hemicellulose, so their degradation rate is very slow. Only 2 to 10% are degraded in 1 hour, whereas the lignin has zero degradation rate. It means it remains unavailable during the ruminal fermentation process, or it remain intact or not being degraded in the rumen. So this is a graphical presentation of the same data. Here you can see the rate of fermentation, and then this is the extent of fermentation. If you look at this, uh, at the sugar, okay, they are fermented at a very high rate. They are fermented at a very high rate within a very short time. It means the rate and extent of sugar fermentation is very high. High amount of sugars they are fermented in a very short time. Whereas the rate and extent of this starch digestion or starch fermentation is comparatively less than that of this sugar molecule. So you can see over here the extent of degradation, the rate of fermentation is up to this level, and uh, maximum amount of the starch is degraded until up to this time. But when we look at the cellulose, you can see the rate as well as the extent of degradation is very slow as compared to sugar and starch. So it means if a diet is having all these three stuff, sugar, starch, and cellulose, the sugar will be fermented in a very short time, then the starch, and then the cellulose. So depending upon the type of carbohydrate in the diet, we have to we have to add other nutrients, particularly the nitrogen in the diet. The reason being, the nitrogen is also required by the microorganism. If sugars they are fermented at a very fast rate, and the nitrogen source is degraded at a slow rate, or vice versa, like you are feeding cellulose with the urea, so then animal will not get any benefit of that urea. The reason being, the energy will not be available for microbial protein synthesis until we add starch or sugar in the diet. So as a summary, the carbohydrates through this ruminal or microbial fermentation, they are converted into volatile fatty acids. There are three main volatile fatty acids, that is acetic acid, propionic acid, and butyric acid. So these short chain fatty acids, they are produced by the microorganisms, particularly in the rumen, and a very little amount in the cecum and colon fermentation when we talk about ruminal fermentation. So out of one glucose molecule, there is a production of two acetates, carbon dioxide and methane. Glucose is made up of 6 carbon. So two acetate mean there is a 4 carbon atom, 1 carbon dioxide and 1 methane. Total makeup of 6 carbons. But when this glucose is converted into propionic acid, so there is a production of 2 propionic acid without production of any gas. And when we talk about the butyrate, again there is a 4 carbon atom in butyrate, and 2 will go for carbon dioxide and methane production. So from this you can conclude that when glucose is converted into propionic acid, there is no production of gases. But when this glucose is converted into acetate or butyrate, then there is a production of carbon dioxide and methane gas. So these VFAs, when they are produced, they absorb through the ruminal wall and they pass to the portal blood for their utilization. So in ruminant animals, 70 to 80% of their energy needs, they are met through this VFAs production. So this is the overall equation for the ruminal fermentation of hexoses. 57 hexoses are converted into 114 pyruvic acid or pyruvate, and that finally yield 65 acetate, 21 propionate, and 14 butyrate molecules, along with 20 carbon dioxide and 73 methane. Now here the question arises why glucose go for all these three pathways. So that depend upon the type of bacterial species present in the rumen, and that species actually relate to the type of substrate available in the rumen, and the glucose molecule is the same, but that glucose actually linked with the type of substrate. So from where it is coming, that matters a lot when we talk about this gas production in the rumen. So carbon dioxide and methane, these are the primary byproduct of ruminal fermentation. Normally, these gases, they are irritated or belch out through from the ruminant animals. In case if they entrapped in the rumen, so that cause a very serious disorder that is known as bloat or tympany. So that actually is a severe distension of the rumen on the left side of the ruminant and can result in death of the animal. These VFAs, they are the primary source of energy. You can say in case of ruminant animals, the acetate, butyrate, and propionate, all these three, they are utilized for the production of energy. But when we look at the fate of these volatile fatty acids, the acetate is utilized for fatty acid synthesis, and butyrate is also converted into ketone bodies. But if there is a production of propionate, so in addition to energy, that propionate is utilized for the synthesis of glucose. So here you can see the effect of different type of feed or the composition of the diet on VFAs productions. Here are the molar ratios of three VFAs: acetate, propionate, and butyrate. If you look at this column, uh, there is a forage to concentrate ratio or forage to grain ratio. The first diet have 100% forage, whereas the last diet have 80% grain and 20% only forage. When the diet is composed of 100% forage, then there is a production of around 70% acetate, 16% propionate, and 8% butyric acid or butyrate. Now, there is a increase in the amount of grain in the second diet. So there is a 25% grain, and you can look at the composition or molar ratios of acetate, propionate, and butyrate. So there is a change in the production of these VFAs. If there is a 50-50 forage and grain, so there is almost a 6 unit or 6% decrease in the amount of acetate and about 2% increase in the propionate, and little or 2% increase in the butyrate. But when we increase the amount of grain in the diet, grain means we are increasing starch component in the diet. So there is a sharp decline in the amount of acetate produced. So it means when we increase the amount of starch in the diet, there is a drop in acetate. So from 70, it is 53, almost 18 to 20% decline in or drop in acetate amount. If you look at the propionate, almost double than that when there is a zero starch. So propionate production is almost doubled, and the butyrate concentration is almost similar to that of 50-50 ratio, or only 2.5% increase in butyrate. So not a big difference, but there is a big difference in the molar ratios of acetate and propionate when we shift animal diet from this 100% forage to 20% forage. So this graph is very important if you want to understand the mechanism of this changes in the diet and then changes in the microbial population and finally the ruminal environment. So all these factors can be clarified easily from this graph. Again, this graph is taken from some internet source. It's a very good explanation of the factors affecting the molar ratios of volatile fatty acids produced in the rumen. The first one that we have discussed is a diet. Now look at the diet. Here is a diet. When we are shifting animal from this fibrous diet towards the starchy diet, then what happens in the rumen? In the starch, there is a production of acetic acid. This is particularly related to when the pH is 7. So this is almost a neutral pH. At if you remember, uh, up to the neutral pH 6 to around 7, the active microbial population is cellulose digester or fibrolytic bacteria or cellulolytic flora. So it becomes clear from here that when there is a fiber in the diet, then cellulolytic bacteria or flora will be active, and ultimately there is a production of more acetic acid. But when there is a production of acetate, you can see that there is a very little amount that we have already seen in the previous. If you look at this, there is a 16% propionate or 70%. So here you can see here more than 70% is the acetate, and then around 10 or 12% is the propionate. So due to production of this acetic acid, there is a drop in ruminal pH because as acid production is there. So this process continue until the pH is around 6, and there is a little increase in the propionic acid ratio. So when the pH is about this, then if you remember again your previous lecture, with a drop in pH from 6, between 5 and 6, at that stage the amylolytic flora is active. So they start digesting, or they start fermenting the starch. So ultimately, due to this activity of amylolytic bacteria, there is a more increase in the production of propionic acid, because amylolytic bacteria, they mainly act on alpha 1,4 glycosidic bond, and that result in a quick production of this glucose, and that glucose is then converted into propionic acid, and that cause a very rapid increase in the propionic acid and uh, rapid decline in the acetate production. Or ultimately at about this less than 4.5 pH, you can see that there is a peak in the propionic acid at 5 pH. So up to pH 6, the cellulolytic bacteria, they are mainly active, but at below 6 pH, the amylolytic bacteria, their activity started, and they start fermenting the starch or other sugars. So what happens when these amylolytic bacteria, they are active, there is a production of alpha glucose molecules which are linked together through alpha 1,4 glycosidic bond. So that cause a production of glucose. That glucose is then converted into propionic acid by the microorganisms, and you can see when amylolytic bacteria, they're active, there is a sharp decline in acetic acid, and there is an increase in the amount of propionic acid. So what happened up to pH 5? Almost there is a peak of propionic acid production, and there is a very low level of acetic acid. So what happened when the human environment is moving towards low or acidic pH? The lactic acid producing bacteria, they become active. Lactic acid bacteria start producing this lactic acid. So ultimately, what happened? The lactic acid causes a sharp decline in ruminal pH, and the process of this lactic acid production exceeds towards a very high molar proportion of the lactic acid. So this is the situation when the animal is moving towards this ruminal acidosis situation, if this lactic acid is not being utilized by the ruminant animals, because these are the weak acid, acetic and propionic acid as compared to the lactic acid. So that's why little production of lactic acid lead towards a very sharp rise in the lactic acid due to a sharp drop in the pH of the ruminal environment. So this is how the diet, how the type of microbial species, and then the ruminal environment, particularly the pH, has an impact on the ruminal fermentation process. So in addition to VFAs, volatile fatty acid, there is also some other products which are produced, like due to the deamination of amino acid, there is a synthesis of different type of acids like isobutyric acid that is synthesized from the valine, valeric acid from proline, and 2-methyl butyric acid from isoleucine, and 3-methyl butyric acid from leucine. So they have their own role in body metabolism and its utilization. We are not going into detail, just give you an idea. There are not only three BFAs, but many other type of acids they are also produced. Next come the carbohydrate digestion in small and large intestine in case of ruminant animal. So when we compare it with the monogastric species, almost the digestion of carbohydrates is similar to that of monogastric species in small and large intestine of ruminant animals. In the small intestine, there is a secretion of digestive enzymes, and these digestive enzymes they are produced as a result of digestive secretion or digestive juices from the pancreas and liver. So they contain amylases, disaccharidases like maltase, sucrase, lactase. So that cause a further digestion of carbohydrate in the small intestine. And due to the activity of these enzymes, there is a production of monosaccharide like glucose, fructose. So these monosaccharides are then absorbed from this small intestine, particularly from the jejunum part of the small intestine. Along with these, there is also absorption of water, minerals, uh, certain small chain fatty acids and amino acids from the small intestine. Then comes the large intestine. So large intestine, like other species in the Caecar colon, there are a bacterial population that cause fermentation of undigested stuff or the stuff which has not been absorbed in the small intestine. So you can say there is a bacterial fermentation in the large intestine, particularly in the ceca and colon part of the large intestine. And as a result of this fermentation, there is a production of BFAs, some amino acids, and little absorption of those BFAs and amino acids also occurs in the large intestine. So due to the absorption of large amount of water from the large intestine, there is also a formation of fecal material in the large intestine. So this is all about this carbohydrate digestion in ruminant animals.